Yeah, so I was mentioning that we started, this was very timely for us because of the strategy that Bonsucro has just launched, the 2021-26 strategy. And we did this in two of the origins where we are placed, which is Brazil and India. And it was very important to get feedback, to get information from how it is to work with Bonsucro in the region. What is it that inspires people? What are the challenges that we are facing? And how we can address these challenges together. I think that was the main focus of doing this business case study at this time. In Brazil, of course, this was the second business case that has, that was done because, they had one done earlier, and to see how the shift, how it had moved from that time to today, and we could see a lot of changes, a lot of good things that have happened over a period of time. Also, because of the continuous engagement of the mills with Bonsucro, there were a lot more advantages that could be seen then. And unfortunately, can't share much about that here. But yes, when we do the Bonsucro Global Week, which shall be soon, let's keep our fingers crossed. We will try and discuss this in more detail. Also, if you keep following our newsletters, and our communication, you will hear about this there. But for India, it was this again. We chose this time because in the last 3 years we established some kind of a base which would help us, and help our partners who are going to be a part of the study to be able to give in some information on the basis of their experiences, which could then help us gauge, what exactly is the situation in India, how we can work together to improve things. Keeping that in mind, Bonsucro has taken this bold step ahead to do this business case study and to see what comes out of it and how we can make things better, like I said. And then we, got Deloitte on board with us, who have been our partners. They have the study has been conducted completely by them, with very limited inputs from us at Bonsucro. And I think it is just very befitting that I hand it over now to the Deloitte team to please take this forward. And I hand it over to you, Alok, from here.
Surely. Thanks, Ritu. So I must thank at the outset Ritu and Rick and the entire Bonsucro team for partnering with us for doing this study. It was very nice to actually do this study, have have information from various of their members and understand about the business case which we were set out to establish for Bonsucro. So just what we have done is we have put together very briefly what was the objective, what was the background. Of course, Ritu touched upon it initially, and also a large part of the presentation today will be focusing on what are the findings while establishing the business case. More importantly, apart from the financial analysis, could be the stakeholder discussions and the alignment to the UN SDG, which is very important, and also the way forward in terms of what are the next steps that one can look at in terms of adopting these standards. Next slide, please. So very briefly, I think, we all know that Bonsucro is actually, working towards sustainable production, processing, and trade of sugar globally and also in the Indian context. So what we try to do here, and through its, production standards and the certification processes. So the study basically focused on developing a business case in terms of, adoption of these standards and the certification process. And the basic hypothesis that we actually, that we undertook to do this study was that significant benefits are actually received by the sugar mills by adopting these standards. And in doing so, one of the important things, of course, we not only looked at financial aspects, because I think finance is something that is very obvious when you look at, in terms of the price premium, which improves, or your access to various preferential markets, reductions in input cost, or, there might be savings due to increase in efficiency. But what we also looked at, what are the other aspects which are there, aspects in terms of compliances, which can lead to safety of workers, reduced accidents, compliances with other laws, reduction of child labor. Also looking at the environmental and the ecological aspects in terms of, we all know that sugarcane is a water consumption crop. So, sustainable use of water and also increase in soil health, that would be there. What was, very important was also availability of data, because we understand, as we all know, that data is very important in understanding and taking various decisions. So these standards, what, we have seen, what is the data which is made available because of these standards and of these. So apart from the cost, there was various other aspects which were taken. Of course, adoption of the standards would have some compliance cost, and vis-a-vis the benefits. So those were also analyzed. The most important aspect was to understand what are the enablers and the barriers for adoption of these standards. So there are enablers, of course, which are financial and which are social or environmental and other aspects which are there. But then there are barriers which actually came out largely from the interaction. So we would also, touch upon that in terms of what are the findings which are there. So next slide, please. So I would request Akanksha to take us through the sector assessment and the findings that are there from the interactions.
Thank you, Alok. I hope I'm audible.
Yeah.
Great. So I'll just quickly take you to the sector assessment, because a lot of us might be familiar with the sugar sector scenario already, so I'll not take much of your time. So as many of you might be knowing, sugarcane is a very important crop for India. It provides livelihood to almost 1 million people directly and indirectly. And sugar is also very politically sensitive commodity. So the prices of sugarcane and sugar both are regulated by the government of India. So the government of India every year announces fair and remunerative prices, the FRP prices for sugarcane. This is the price at which the mills have to buy the sugarcane from the farmers, and they're also mandated to buy each stick of sugarcane that is produced in the country. So, and on top of this, FRP prices, some of the states also announce SAP, state advised prices, which again the mills have to pay the farmers to buy sugarcane from the producers as such. So the FRP plus the SAP makes the cost of sugarcane quite high, leaving sugarcane very uncompetitive for export. And because the prices are so high, obviously the production is more. So the production is higher, but it's uncompetitive in the global market because of the higher prices. So the export option is pretty much limited in the country for now. So that is something that is a hindrance in exporting of a great commodity otherwise quality-wise. So the yields in India are also slightly low, and we all know sugarcane is a very highly water-intensive crop. So what that does is that because the sugarcane is very water-intensive crop, it's among the top 5 water-intensive crops across the globe. So there is very limited focus on sustainable production of the crop. A lot of fertilizer is used, a lot of water is used in the production of the crop. This again, impacts the environment for the country, and especially in India, which is a very water scarce nation as such. So these are some of the major challenges that come in the production of sugarcane in the country. However, there is still hope, because sugarcane has a lot of byproducts, including ethanol, molasses, and sugar, syrup, etc. So all these components are very important. There are about 25 industries which can use the byproducts of sugarcane. Especially the government of India's ethanol blended program, EBP program, has come out, and wherein ethanol is basically a very environmental friendly fuel, and the government is promoting use of ethanol instead of the other non-environmental friendly fuels for vehicles and for the other industrial processes. So that is something which the excess production of sugarcane is being diverted to now. Then cogeneration is also very important factor here. So sugarcane can also be used to produce electricity. So supply of excess electricity has also gained momentum in the country. So these sugarcane is also being used to produce jaggery. And a lot of consumers that are health aware now are using jaggery instead of sugar. So these are the couple of points that we wanted to highlight are the drivers for the industry. However, like mentioned above, the sustainable production in India is a very nascent stage in the country for sugarcane, and that is something that Bonsucro aims to address through this case study. So it wanted to produce more sustainable sugarcane so that a water-intensive crop can be made a very environmental as well as economic friendly crop as well. Moving on to the insights that we got from the consultations that we had. Next slide, please. So during the course of the study, we had multiple consultations with a lot of stakeholders, including government think tanks, sugar associations, sugar mills, research institutes, certification agencies, buyers, international as well as local buyers. So there were a lot of points that were highlighted where in the interest of time, I will only cover the important points here. So basically what we've heard from a lot of stakeholders is what I'll be highlighting. So since the prices for sugarcane and sugar are currently regulated by the government, the industry and especially the mills have been facing the brunt of it. So what has been advised a lot has been that the state advised prices, the SAP, should be replaced by a revenue sharing formula, RSF, wherein 75% of the proceeds from the sale of sugar should be divided between, should be given to the farmers instead of the SAP. So that has been in the offing for quite a long time, but that has not really been able to execute in the country as such. There is also, so a lot of mills, certification agency, research institutes, everybody agreed that sustainable production of sugar is something very important and that is something that should happen. But they also highlighted that while the environmental friendliness of sustainable production is quite clear, an economic benefit has to be brought out more clearly for both the farmers and the mills who are not currently producing Bonsucro or sustainable sugar, to highlight, to make it more mainstream to have a sustainable production. And a lot of consumers and farmers were not aware of the Bonsucro standards. So focus on on awareness generation for Bonsucro is also very important, because like we all know, if a lot of consumers prefer, say, organic sugar over regular sugar. However, such differentiation is not happening currently in the sustainable sugar market. So consumers are not aware that organic sugar is different, raw sugar is different, and sustainably produced sugar is different. So that awareness needs to come around at this moment, that is currently missing. Presently in India, there are 7 mills that are certified for Bonsucro. However, all of them are private. And more focus needs to be put on the cooperative mills, and we have to bring them under certification, these cooperative mills, and only then can we assume that a mainstreaming of such a system can happen. Next slide, please.
And while you move to the next slide, I will let you take a breath. And just wanted to add here that since the study, we've had 3 more mills that have been certified. So the number is gradually increasing. And we are happy to have more on board. Please continue, Akanksha. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for adding that, Ritu. Next slide, please.
Akanksha, carry on while he moves to the next slide.
Sure. So we've also spoken to the buyers. So while a lot of institutional buyers were happy to contribute to the cause, and they were happy to procure sustainably produced sugar, But they said that since the demand from the consumers is not coming for sustainably produced sugar, they are also slightly laid back on the same aspect. So they do have the sustainability practices in place, but they said since the consumers currently do not differentiate between raw sugar and sustainably produced sugar, they are not able to implement the same because they also have to look at their margins for their business purposes. Speaking to the mills and the farmers did appreciate the cost savings that accrued from low fertilizer use and lower water usage. But since that was not directly translating into higher incomes, they were still slightly wary of adoption, and they were still, there was a lot of convincing that had to happen in order for farmers to really start producing Bon Sucro sugar. And because the volume of Bon Sucro is currently low compared to the regular sugar, there is little, that can be seen in terms of whether Bon Sucro standards also help me in improvement of quality. That is slightly still hard to discern. One thing that really came out of our discussion was the Bon Sucro calculator and its use. So the farmer, so for the sugar mills that were using the Bon Sucro calculator were really appreciative of how, the benefits from the calculator. So the calculator basically tells you how sugar production has increased, how GHG emissions have reduced, how environmental friendly Bon Sucro has been, how accidents have reduced. So all of these things the calculator is calculating. And the mills were very happy to see the results, the tangible results that were coming out of their, change in their practices. And they said that that was helping them in, in decision making at the mill level as well. Another thing was the Bon Sucro credit trading platform. So the credit trading platform is where the credits of Bon Sucro can be traded across the globe. So they were also very happy with the system. It was quite smooth and easy to use for the mills. However, a few of those mills did point out that the cost for the transaction was slightly high. It was currently fixed at $1 per transaction. So they said that probably fixing a cost is not the best idea. So if it's possible, then say a very nominal fee should be charged, or it should be say a 1% or 2% of the transaction cost instead of fixing one particular amount to trade the credits for. So I'll hand over to Samudra now for the financial analysis part.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm Samudra Mukherjee. I'll be walking through the financial analysis. Next slide, please. So the key challenge that we faced while deriving the financial analysis in terms of the returns to the mill was getting the appropriate data on which we would calculate the return metrics. Return metrics in this case being aspects like net present value, return on investment, and the social return on investment. So we saw that the Bon Sucro calculator is a very powerful tool for making financial calculations. But before the certification regime and before the certification was implemented, the mills did not have too much of data because the calculator itself was not there. So to tide over this, we consulted the mills and did an internal brainstorming with our teams, and in consultation with the Bon Sucro team as well, we decided to create a model from scratch, and we would do projections of the cost and benefits using inputs from the calculator as a baseline and fine-tuning it based on insights from the mills. So what parameters did we use for this? We assumed the cost line items for which we would define scenarios and project them, and also we would have benefits line items for which we would take past data into account and project them over a 5-year period. So what would we reach using these tables? We would be able to carry out an assessment of the indicative return based on past trend. So we assumed 5 unique scenarios. In each of these scenarios, we created a specific set of variables. In one, we would have high cost growth and low benefit growth, and we would assume that the mill has achieved a premium. Secondly, we would keep the cost growth as low while the benefits are increasing at a higher rate and the mill has a premium. In the third case, we would have medium growth for cost and benefits, and premium would be achieved. And in another case, there would be no premium. And just to round out the scenarios, we have taken a special case wherein only 50% of the sugar would be sold at a premium. So, and to deep dive into what were the benefits and the costs that we looked into, we looked into aspects like the premium from certified sugar sales, the cash flow benefits that we get from reduction in diesel use and reduction in various inputs, the incremental wages and the benefits from increases in yield. Some of the cost aspects that we looked were the cost of pre-assessment, cost of audit, the membership fees, the various costs associated with sustainability, the compliance cost, as well as the initiative taken by the mills for a good working environment, ensuring biodiversity and improving their business areas. So we'll jump into the specific cost aspects now. Next slide, please. So we carried out an assessment of the various costs associated with the mills. We looked at both the direct costs and the indirect costs. So some of the key findings was that there is a variation of the mills, especially with respect to the indirect costs. In direct costs, most of the mills are aligned, but however, there is some variation because some of the mills took the certification journey earlier than the others. So they have the benefit of experience to fall back on. And also we see that some sustainability issues are taken care by the mills as a normal business as usual activity. So it is not attributed to certification. So we see quite a bit of variation in the indirect cost. A key point that we have noted is training has been taken very seriously by the mills, and training in how to use PPE safety aspects has been conducted across all the mills under study, and mills have invested in these areas. Next slide, please. So we have carried out an analysis of the cost that the mills have incurred across various parameters. We see that there is some variation among the mills. For the first mill that we studied, we saw that the cost of extension services and the cost of audit are some of the major costs. For the second mill, we saw that the cost of manpower is high, as well as the cost of audit is also significant. And by manpower, we mean that the unique and attributable cost to certification. So the manpower that has been engaged in driving the sustainability agenda has been considered uniquely. Next slide, please. So rounding out our study, we saw for the third mill, the cost of audit and the membership fee are the dominant costs. The same finding is reflected in the next mill as well, where the cost of audit and the membership fees is also significant, and this mill has also invested significantly in training. So this concludes our analysis of the cost heading across the mills. Next slide, please. So putting everything in perspective here, we see that total costs for 3 of the mills are aligned to each other. One of the mills has a lower cost. Once again, this validates our finding that the mill who has taken the certification journey earlier is ahead in the game, and they can leverage their experience and use it to rationalize their cost over a larger period of time. Another key finding was that as your area per farmer is lower, your per unit cost increases, and you will be incurring a higher cost. So there we found a weak correlation. Next, we'll talk about some of the critical findings in terms of smallholder farmers. We see that one of the key benefits of Bonsucro certification is the cost of certification is borne by the mill and not the smallholders. This has an advantage that it increases the benefits of the certification, and it can percolate to a wider audience and has thus reduced the barrier to entry. The data availability aspect has helped the key mill decision makers take data-driven decision making. They do not have to rely on their intuition. They have the data backed by the calculator to take their decisions. A lot of support has been extended to farmers in terms of soil testing, medical kits, and capacity building inputs, which includes also the farm diary and regular awareness camps. And one key benefit is that the lead farmers regularly interact with the millers on a regular basis, and this creates a good interaction platform wherein they can imbibe the best practices, and the expansion of the number of lead farmers will mean that more farmers benefit from the unique attributes of certification. And we have a significant number of smallholders farmers in India. At the time of the study, when we carried it out, it was around 8,700. Next slide, please. So this basically illustrates how our model looks like. So we took in the input cost for the first year, which is the year of certification, and we projected it for a 5-year period to calculate our net present value and returns. Net present value is basically the discounted value of all the future cash flows, net of all the costs. So we looked at one-time costs as well as recurring costs. In terms of recurring costs, we looked at the direct and indirect costs, which are like cost of audit, membership fees, which is directly attributable to certification. In the indirect costs, we looked at all the miscellaneous and support costs, which will help the mill align to the sustainability agenda. For the negative cash flows, we looked at the cost like for the positive cash flow, we looked at aspects like premium from the certified sugar sale, and the mills are expected to reduce use of inputs like diesel, fertilizers, and irrigation water. So we monetize the same using proxies, and we projected the positive cash flows. So using this, we derived our returns and our NPV. So this is how the model looked like. In the next few slides, we'll talk about the key findings. So if we see that we found out the selling price of 1 ton of non-certified sugar, and using our model, we calculate the net present value per ton of sugar. This is the extra benefit which the mills would accrue if they go for certification. So some of the key trends are that the mills have similar trends in NPV. So the model is validated because for all the mills, we see that they are in lockstep with each other. And the key finding right now is that even if my cost is growing at a high rate, compared to benefit, even then the mill is in a position to have a positive NPV. A positive NPV implies that on the whole, my investment is fruitful. It has given me more benefits than my cost. But the underlying statement here is that the mill would have to obtain a premium. And however, if the premium is zero, then it's the only case in which the NPV is slightly negative. But even with the adverse situation of high cost and medium benefit, we see that the NPV is positive, which bodes well for the certification. So this was the conclusion in terms of the returns and NPV. We will now look at the return on investment, which is a percentage figure, and will give us an unbiased view as well. Next slide, please. So here we look at the return of investment and the social return on investment. Return on investment is a purely financial figure, but the social return on investment also considers the positive benefits to society, like reduction in diesel use, reduction in pesticides and weedicides. So together we see that there is indeed a significant variation in returns across the mill. So our team went and did some brainstorming on why this has happened. So one of the reasons was that the timing of certification, it is better to begin the certification journey as quickly as possible so that the team has more time to imbibe the learnings, and so that majority of the costs will become part of your business as usual operations. And second is, yes, there are variations which we just talked about. Moving on, that we saw that even if there is a high cost growth, even in terms of percentage figures, presence of premium will give mills a positive ROI. And the last conclusion that we draw here is that the total cost base plays a role. So if you can keep the total cost base down and the supporting costs go down, then both the NPV, ROI and SROI increases as a whole. Thank you. This concludes our financial section part of the analysis. So we'll move on, and I'll request Akanksha to take over the UN SDG alignment.
Before we move there, I just again would like to just step in here for a second to say that if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A, and we will try and answer as many questions as we can. Happy to have this kind of a more a discussion on this, and to see what is your understanding, if you have any, and also to be able to communicate to you what we have what has been the learning for Bonsucro from this, and how we manage, how we would like to take it forward in the future in alignment with our new strategy. So quickly then, now we will just look at the UN SDG alignment, for which I request Akanksha, please.
Sure. Thanks, Ritu. So moving on to the SDG alignment, as we all know, SDG is something very important to India in meeting its global commitments. SDG is also very important to Bonsucro. It focuses on 7 SDGs as of now. On a global level, we've seen that Bonsucro itself is doing a lot to meet the SDG targets, and it is also encouraging the mills and the farmers to do the same. So by taking up Bonsucro certification, it has been witnessed that about 200 million kgs of CO2 was saved from entering an atmosphere, which is a huge number. Also, a lot of water use has been decreased from following of these standards, taking up the certification. The artificial fertilizer used has reduced, and the farmers and the mills are focusing more on the organic and natural fertilizers and pesticides for sugarcane. And because it also focuses on safety aspects for the farmers as well as the mill workers, 48% of the less accidents have happened at the mill level, and 38% less accidents have happened at the farm level. This is for the global Bonsucro scenario that we're talking on. Moving on to the next slide, we'll also focus on the regional level impact of Bonsucro, how exactly India has benefited. So we spoke to the 4 mills in question that were part of the stakeholder group, and we were very happy to know that all these mills were doing their part in meeting the SDG targets, and they were doing a lot to contribute to the environment as well. So we see all these mills had very safe training practices in place. They had campaigns running for encouraging women farmers. They had sewage treatment plants. They had water recycling plants. They were adhering to minimum wage laws. They were also partnering with international stakeholders to ensure that they are following the best of the best water treatment practices, waste management of practices, and they were ensuring that there was no discharge or no wastage that was coming out of sugarcane. They were using like all the byproducts. They were using till the last speck of sugarcane could have been used. That's what they were using. So on the next slide, we'll also very quickly run through what each of the mills was doing. So I'll not go through each of them. I'll just take you through them in a glance. So you will see that EID Parry was focusing on training the employees in use of PPE kits, in use of safe practices at the mill level as well as the farm level. They were practicing non-discriminatory practices as well, encouraging women farmers. Olam, for example, was doing a lot of gender sensitivity workshops. They were running campaigns for farming communities for using less water, for using clean water and sanitation practices. Baramati has installed an RO system at the villages to make sure that clean water is going for consumption at the farm level as well. They were also deploying training programs for both farmers and mill employees. Dalmia Bharat again has also tied up with hospital staff to ensure that even if there is an accident that occurs, it is attended to in the fastest manner possible. They're also paying, Dalmia is paying higher than the minimum wages to the workers to ensure that their minimum, not only their minimum basic needs are met, but their economic well-being is also taken care of. Moving on to the next slide. So like I've already mentioned, all these mills were carrying out recycling of water. They were ensuring that water usage was reduced, fertilizer usage was reduced. They were taking care of the environment. Climate smart practices were being followed. Climate resilient agriculture was being promoted among the farmers also. They were promoting drip irrigation, micro irrigation, and all these waste management practices that could be used. And all these mills have also partnered with international stakeholders like NABARD and IFC and Solidaridad to make sure that all the good practices, the best practices, can be followed for all their practices.
Thank you, Akanksha. Moving on. I just also want to add here that these were the 4 mills who were selected for because they've been certified Bonsucro for more than 2 years. EID Parry, of course, being the pioneer. But I would really not take away anything from the mills who are not being mentioned here. I think, as we move out into the sector and as we associate, with our members and, we visit them and we see the kind of work that is being done, I think it is of a really, really exemplary standard. There are a lot of leading mills, and I would not like to take any names here, but most of our members, in fact, all of our members have been doing a lot of work on the social front. There is a lot being handled, for the end use of sugarcane. There are a lot of innovative ideas, and a lot of work that is already being done. And we really appreciate, really appreciate that part. It would be really nice for us to also get this kind of a feedback and, to learn more from them. We want this to be a more interactive process going forward. Akanksha, please carry on.
Yes. We'd like to also throw some light upon. So we've seen that how mills are, performing on the SDGs, how the government is also focusing on SDGs. So what next? So we know that India as a country is quite committed to meeting its SDG targets to meet, climate change targets. So what we think could happen forward is something that we'd like to focus upon. So the NITI Aayog is working a lot on building the SDG India Index, wherein it is tracking all these states, what they are doing in terms of their SDG indicators, how they are progressing as well. A lot of states have also created their own, targets. They are also following and preaching sustainable practices. For example, the government of Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, and organic agriculture is being promoted by the government of India across all the states. So while we see that the government is doing a lot and these standards are all also doing a lot, but we see that to an extent they are working in silos. So the government of India scheme for say soil health will not focus on the labor standards. A government of India's mission on water conservation will not focus on say safety of the workers as such. So we see that there is a lot of scope for the government to and the standards to work together, to come in tandem, work in tandem, because the standards can have the ability to promote a lot of practices together. So when a standard like Bonsucro goes to a farmer and the farmer adopts it, so the standard certification agency can encourage the farmers to use soil health cards. They can encourage the farmers to use water conservation practices, to employ micro irrigation, drip irrigation systems in there. So there's a lot of government schemes that are already there, can be combined together. They can work in tandem, and the concerted efforts can happen, and it will give you much more results. So that is something we think can be, the future outlook for managing the SDGs, as well as to take the standards to the next level. So moving on, we'll give you the way forward as we've discussed with our stakeholders. What can be the next big things for Bonsucro standards? What can be done going forward to strengthen the certification in the future?
Thank you, Akanksha. So I'll cover this part. So in this part of the webinar, we'll talk about how to strengthen the certification, some of the way forward aspects that we can look at. So during the stakeholder discussions, a few things came out. Most critical among them is awareness generation. So we have to increase awareness of the certification, not only at a global level, but also at an Indian level, involving some of the leading Indian corporate players like ITC, Britannia, Haldiram, to work with such companies and let people know what certification is all about and what it implies. So, and also the awareness has to percolate to the end consumer level. So only when they are sensitized can the end demand increase and certification be made more popular across the value chain. And we also feel that NGOs may be roped in for this purpose, and government agencies and networks can also be leveraged. Next important part is the localization to Indian scenario. There are currently smallholders standards in India, but however, it is difficult to follow for the farmers. One positive thing in this aspect is that some of the mills are very conscious about this, and they have implemented the standards in the local language, so farmers can readily understand and adopt them. And this will definitely increase the awareness as a whole. So some of the focus areas in this aspect, we feel that the quick wins will include onboarding institutional buyers, government sector entities, NGOs, creating a boost for awareness, making the farmers understand what certification is all about, how they benefit, and also emphasizing the key benefits of certification in terms of the reduction of input costs. Next slide, please. Next, we look at the aspects of publicizing the benefits. We found out while carrying out this study that the Bonsucro calculator itself is a key enabler. It gives a plethora of data to decision makers to fine-tune their mill operations and understand where their investment will have the most impacts. and we have seen some very good advances in terms of mill operational efficiency increases, boost in safety levels, and we feel that publicizing them will definitely increase the awareness of the certification and ensure that more mills adopt the same. And the final point in this regard is that we feel that the trading costs right now on the Bonsucro credit trading platform have to be rationalized. The Bonsucro credit trading platform is a very innovative platform developed by Bonsucro, which helps companies meet their sustainability agenda. And in this regard, we feel that to popularize this in the initial phase, trading can either be made free or there has to be a very nominal price till the platform takes off as a whole. And in this regard, to summarize, our focus areas in this aspect would be emphasizing the key impacts on the smallholder, helping showing traceability, which will interest the conscious consumers, and also highlighting the benefits accrued to the mill, and lastly, rationalizing the trading costs. With that, we come to the conclusion of this part of the segment, and I would invite Ritu to take over once again for the concluding portion.
Thank you, and thank you very much for that. We have a couple of questions come up in the Q&A, which I will just take on in a minute. But I think when we were discussing how we present this business case study, I thought I wouldn't be doing justice without presenting to you once again, our new strategy, the strategy wheel as we got it in Bonsucro for 2021-26. And this is really taking into all the points that have been said by the Deloitte team, the challenges of the marketing or the challenges to do with the smallholder farmers. And I would really wish, that everyone here, all our stakeholders, and, we may not be too many in number here today, but let me tell you, we have with us, people from the civil society, we have NGOs participating today, we have, buyers who are there on the call, and of course our members on the call and the Bonsucro team. So it's good for each one also to see, what is it that we can do to make this possible? We cannot do everything on our own. Therefore, establishing a platform, coming together, and this entire question of having to work in silos and not being able to make an impact because of that is one of the big challenges that we face. So the minute we come together, I think, we will be doing everybody a favor in that. And with that, I will take up the strategy wheel in a minute, but I think I would just like to answer a few questions that have come up first. One is from Anamika from Coca-Cola. Can we get a ballpark number of cost of small farm holder? So I think the answer to this is that, yes, we can give you an average. And I think, Shamudra, we worked on the beneficiary costs as well. But it varies, Anamika. It depends on how ready the mills are, how ready the farmers are. Some have done it over a period of time. And this is something that you saw even in the findings, that mills who have been members of Bonsucro over a period of time, the cost gradually comes down. It reduces because of the experience of the people. There's lesser investment costs, and that is a very big advantage. We will although share with you this particular slide, and so that it answers your question. There is another question from Dr. Shanmuga Sundaram from EID Parry. Tangible financial benefits to farmers and millers needs to be addressed to scale up this concept in India. Fully agree with you. The more we talk about it, the less it is, and again, like I said, you have to be able to identify, you as EID Parry, being the pioneers, having seen it for so long, would definitely be able to see for yourself as to how the farmers have benefited. Maybe, they sometimes, because farmers were not keeping records, they cannot understand that if there is a saving, that is also a benefit to them. I think this kind of an education, this kind of a initiation of a thought process is equally important. Sudhir has said something about there are two parts. One is, working on sustainability. Sudhir is from Olam. Working on sustainability, each mill based on their approach towards sustainability, plan as they do work as at the field level. And the second part is when it comes to certification, it will have costs which the mill expects the premium will be covered by the premium on sugar. All right. So, of course, Sudhir, having seen the way Olam works, there is a lot of work that you have done with your farming community. We've seen the kind of farmer records that you've been maintaining, which was an excellent practice, and really also helped you in the first shot to take your farmer numbers up to, I think you have 800 farmers certified. And when it comes to certification, it will have cost which mill is expecting a premium on sugar. Well, yes, as far as the market is concerned, I may just like to add here is that we are not, we are trying to create that kind of an environment. We're trying to have that kind of an holistic approach. And you will see that there is a lot of interest from the buyers as well. We are in Bonsucro constantly in engagement with them. But as far as the regions are concerned, we also do have some challenges as far as quantities are concerned. And we are trying together to work on it. And like we've said, we have the credit rating platform. I hope you're there. I hope you're interacting on that. And I hope that, this will only get better from here. Awareness among buyers is very important. I'm glad to share with you that we have a lot of them on the call today, and I'm sure they are listening to this, Sudhir. Thank you for your question. There is another question from Ashutosh, which says, as cost of farming growing for farmers for various reasons, most of the time, children support parents at farms. That is, we know that, but the Bonsucro standard is very clear on that. We are governed by the ILO. We know what it is. There are some permissible age limits. There is only certain kind of non-hazardous work that is permissible. The guidelines are very, very clear. And I think, we are also reaching out to mills. I mean, we've had these discussions in the past with the mills. We couldn't sort of take it forward because of COVID-19 to see what kind of awareness programs we can do, along with the CSRs of the company, getting in specialized helps from organizations who work for child rights to see how this can be addressed. It's, it's also not something that we will do one day and move out another day. It's an education, it's an awareness program. You have to handle it from going bottom up. If we try and enforce it from the top, it will not last long. So we are trying to develop those partnerships, Ashutosh. We'll be happy to talk about this going further. Definitely a very, very valid point. And like I said, for us here at Bonsucro, and more, if you look at the way the strategy wheel looks, it is about collaboration. It is about partnerships. It is about what we can do as we come together, addressing different kinds of issues that are there. And let me tell you, these are not only common to India. These issues are there everywhere, in different measures. But we don't hide behind them. We don't say that they don't exist. The idea is to come together and find solutions. We talk about continuous improvement. We just don't, engage with you or with the mills or with our partners today and then we are gone tomorrow. It has taken Bonsucro 4 years, 3.5 years, 4 years to decide to do this business case study. Why? Because we feel today we are in a position where we can sort of ring in everybody together to say that sustainability is not only your issue, it is our issue together. We work in it together. So please, we are looking at doing impact projects. If you read our strategy, which is available on our website, you will see how systematically we have, delved into it, how much engagement, how much time we have spent over it to try and see what we can do, what improvements are needed to be made, and how we can do it together. And for this, I think, all that has been said through the business case study findings, you will find that it is in some way incorporated in the new strategy, and it was just not done very haphazardly. A lot of thought has gone behind it. I would be happy to sort of unmute somebody who would like to speak as well, but there is a question from Dipyendu Hazra. Thank you, Dipyendu, for your question. And it says that the water consumption criteria of sugarcane must have been seen with maturity, time period factor also. Cane took 12 months and consumed 2000 mm, whereas an alternate to cane is wheat plus cotton plus onion combination, which too consumes almost same amount of water annually. Still, sugarcane is accused for excess water consumption. Don't we need to change this concept? That's a lot of information and a very big question. Yes, I mean, I agree with you. And I would also say that we are working, I mean, the Bonsucro calculator requires you to sort of give in that kind of information. Going forward, we also are, we have a mandate in our new strategy. Water is one of our, focus areas. Between Rick and myself, we are also trying to work out a plan, try and see how we can engage with specialists in this field to see how we can address this area. And of course, Dipyendu, we hope that you will also be a partner taking lead in addressing these questions. There is another question from Ashutosh. Use of pesticides and chemicals has increased over a period of time. Many children also get exposed, harmful for adults as well. Well, yes, I would agree with you, Ashutosh. We have a list of banned chemicals. There is a constant need to keep going back to our farmers, to keep going back to people, bringing these things out. And I must tell you that some of our members have also, when they make the farmer diary, have this whole sheet of the banned chemicals printed in the diary so that there is a constant reference point. And in my interaction now with farmers, I have seen, not been out now for almost a year and a half, but before that, it was quite clear that, with a regular interaction, from the cane extension teams of the mills and non-availability of these banned chemicals in certain areas, this had been addressed, to quite an extent. I know that there is another new list of banned chemicals which the government was working on, but that still seems to be, there doesn't seem to be much of a decision on that. So, well, let's see how this goes further. Sudhir, I think I can take one last question, and there are a few international companies and NGOs who are in the progress of declaring or already having their own standards of sustainability. How can you differentiate the importance of being certified Bonsucro and other sustainability certification standards? Well, let me tell you, for us here at Bonsucro, we have, based on our strengths and our experience, we are now considered a gold standard. We are covered under the, we are recognized under ISEAL. So that way, yes, of course, but not to take away from the fact that there are international companies. Some of the buyers have their own sustainability standards as well. But we do have commitments from them as they recognize Bonsucro as one of the leading standards for sustainable sugarcane production, not only in India, but globally. At the same time, we have standards and innovation, a full team at Bonsucro who looks into these issues very closely. And if there is, if we are ever approached with a concern like this, we address it in a very, very systematic way. But if you are with Bonsucro, you are with the gold standard. I don't see any more questions coming in. And at this point, I would really like to thank the Deloitte team for a very comprehensive look at what Bounce Wipro has been and how it has worked out and what the challenges have been in the last 3 years. My request and my plea and my what should I say, like all of you to come together, like all of us to come together to work towards making things better. For the last comments, I would request Rick, my regional director, to please say a few words. Rick. Rick, are you there?
Oh, sorry, I was in mute. Yeah, thank you, Ritu. Yeah. Okay, I would like to express sincere thanks, okay, to everyone who joined this launch of, business case study outcomes for India. I think, we all know very clearly that, okay, India, holds a very critical role for the, cane supply chain and the sugar supply chain, not only, for the country, but also for the region and globally, right? And we are very appreciated to see that so many stakeholders have been very active on the Bouncekuru platform, and the more and new stakeholders are, in the progress to join us, which is so great. And so many stakeholders have been very supportive to us, okay, based on the win-win partnership. And we have been, very often asked the question, what's the business case study to join Bouncekuru? And what's the business case, what's business case to join Bouncekuru? What's a business case to achieve Bouncekuru certification? Our management of Bouncekuru, the board of Bouncekuru do, feel that we need to give a very clear, comprehensive and fact-based answer to all the stakeholders about this very important question. And that's why we, invested a lot of resource and work together with Deloitte, okay, which is a very famous global, agency who has very rich experience in the subject. So to work out this business case study, that's what we have launched today, right? And I have seen so many, great questions. But it's just, a portion of our continuous conversation, all right? And we do encourage such kind of, double-way conversation moving forward, and more such kind of double-way communication will happen. We expect that, and we are confident it's going to happen. And we are confident that we, as Bouncekuru, the global platform, will work together with you, okay, to make the business case stronger and stronger, right, for all the stakeholders based on the win-win partnership. So thank you very much, everyone, and thanks to Deloitte team again. Also thanks to Ritu, okay, for your great leadership for this critical project globally. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. And it's my pleasure and my honor actually to be able to do this work. I really do it because I believe very strongly in it. And thank you to all of you for your partnership. We hope to continue to work together to make this bigger and better going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you.